Hello, class. Welcome back to Philosophy 1301. We're going to do part 2 of Chapter 6, Eastern Thought, or I like to call it Eastern Philosophies. So right now we're going to begin with Buddhism. We just ended with Hinduism. And the reason why it took so long with Hinduism kind of sets up the foreground for what Buddhism is going to be. So Buddhism is kind of like a modified version, if you will, of Hinduism, more or less, a response, let's put it that way, to Hinduism. So Buddhism is the fourth largest religion in the world today, right? It's about 460 million plus adherents today worldwide. One of the fastest growing religious traditions in North America, uh, especially like in the 20th century. It's pretty interesting. For example, you have writers like Jack Kerouac, and I'll show you Mexico City Blues. I should show you the Dharma Bums by him, but I don't have it. Somebody stole it or rented it. But Jack Kerouac, also known for On the Road, the beat writers, Jack Kerouac, Carlos Williams, sorry, uh, and Allen Ginsberg, right? Can't forget Allen Ginsberg. Great, interesting, problematic many times, but these people were always about, following the Dharma, right? They incorporated their own Zen Buddhist notions, really not really pure to the really traditions from Eastern India and stuff, or Northwest India, but nonetheless they adopted these Zen Buddhist a la Beats, right, a la Kerouac, a la Ginsberg, as a way to protest and resist the conformity of 1950s U.S. society. So these guys, the Beats, were the precursors, right? The forefathers, right? The ones that came right before the hippies. So these guys are doing crazy drugs, parties and stuff, right? Before the hippies came. So 50s and then the 60s, right? So, and it all started because of this, right? Thinking for yourself. It's all about trying to transcend the materialism of 1950s America by, spiritual means, and that included for them the intake of hallucinatory substances. All right. Anyways, so you have like these people appropriating, right, Buddhism for their own kicks, basically. They give us some good books. Right? I recommend this Mexico City Blues. It's pretty cool. It's just a bunch of little poems and stuff. Right? And he wrote it during his time when he was in Mexico City. So yeah, I relate to it a lot. Maybe that's why I recommend this book a lot. But I can understand if you hate Jack Kerouac. He's really sexist. So trigger warning for that. All right. So Buddhism, no single authoritative text, right? Same like Buddhism, right? No main God, right? There is no God in Buddhism at all, right? It's one of the challenges or responses it has against Buddhism. I mean, against Hinduism, is that Buddhism has no God. It's all about you. Um, it comes in many variations, practices, embodiments, right? Two of the most famous, well known here in the U.S. Is Zen Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism. Um, but it comes in different forms, right? And practices that way. So what's really important about Buddhism, like I said, it has no creator, like God. It has no God or gods. It's not about like that. It's not at all. It's not about this like all-knowing deity. It's not about this. How can I say? Like this salvation doesn't come through like devotion to one God or many gods or rituals to gods and stuff. Or the truth doesn't come through the word of God or getting close to this God thing, Brahmin or whatever you want to call it, right? Allah or whatever, right? Yahweh. It's not about that. There's no God. There's no deity, this all-knowing, all-powerful, all-pervasive deity, right? There's no, as a matter of fact, Buddha, right, himself, right, he's not, it's a guy, it's actually a person that lived, the enlightened one. That's what Buddha means, the, the all-knowing one, the one that's enlightened. So so there's no central authority, right? And this is why I kind of started off this lecture with like Jack Kerouac and the Beats, of how they appropriated this Buddhist notion of no central authority, right? It's all about the individual, kind of calling the shots more or less of their own salvation, instead of like having some police officers telling you not to do what to do and what not to do. You're like, no, I know my own salvation, right? There's no central authority, right? It's all about this individual authority, or is antithesis. Authority is not, it's not useful for the individual to growth, and to realize their own salvation. So it's about reaching their own salvation here. It's an own personal journey. Buddhism. An individual, as a matter of fact, achieves salvation not through faith in this like one God or many gods or whatever, but through his or her own or their own self-discipline and self-transformation. So it's up to you. It has a lot of discipline all on you. So there's no external forces out there you need to pray to for your luck to change or for your world to be a better place. You have to work, do that labor yourself to become and transform a better person. This is what Buddhism gives you, right? This heavy responsibility on you. Right? There's no God out there. It's you. It's all on you. So it's counterintuitive, right? It's antithesis to most Western religions, right? There is no ultimate all-knowing, omnipresent, whatever God. Right? Buddha is just an example to follow. Right? He's just a teacher. He was a teacher. He was a prince and he became a teacher. I'll get into that right now. He's just an example to follow, the Buddha. It's not something you pray to. It's an example you follow. A moral exemplar. You want to go like Aristotle's approach. Another, I guess, Western appropriation of Buddhism is Nietzsche. Thus spoke Zarathustra. Thus spoke Zarathustra. It's a really good book. It's all basically all based upon like the teachings of Buddha, right? The teachings of Buddha, right? Right. There's examples, right? And basically, long story short, in Thus spoke Zarathustra is this guy that becomes, I guess, enlightened, and he has all these followers. And the whole point of this of Nietzsche here is about the herd mentality. He's like anti that. He hates the herd mentality, that you follow the herd. You're gonna be that sheep, that black sheep that goes and does his own thing, that's out of step with the world. Right? To quote one of my favorite bands, Minor Threat. But you want to be that out of step, right, with the world. Right? You don't want to follow the herd of sheep going into that same corral, into the slaughterhouse. Basically, you want to go and jump that corral and do your own thing. Right? This is what Buddhism kind of gives you. Right? What kind of underlies its beliefs under that individualism. So, and thus spoke Zarathustra by Friedrich Nietzsche, which you'll be talk about in chapter, I guess, 8, chapter 9, or chapter 10, one of those chapters in modern philosophy. It's kind of like a mirror image of the Buddha. So he finds truth, right? Reaches nirvana, right? Salvation, right? Instead of moksha, like in Hinduism, here is nirvana, which means extinguish. And we'll get to that right now in a bit. And this guy, right, Zarathustra, he's like, yo, like don't praise me, follow me, be my followers, be my companions. Don't be my, right? Don't praise me at all. Right? Be my companions and let's go through this journey together and stuff. So that's kind of like the Buddhist approach to life, where you don't submit to this deity that's all powerful and all knowing. You submit to your own responsibility. All right. So let's get into the actual teachings. All right. So you're right. So the Buddha, right, rejected the caste system. In fact, women could become enlightened ones, could become Buddhas as well, could become followers or companions of this journey into nirvana. This extreme asceticism was also denied. And asceticism means that you just like deny yourself the pleasures, physical pleasures. So you just could reach moksha or nirvana. You don't do that. They denied or outlawed the practice of animal sacrifice. That was not necessary. There's no gods to please here. It's just you, right? So stop killing this poor little sheep or cow. Chill the fuck out with that, right? And you don't submit to no authority to some like Vedas, right? Some holy scripture or something like that, or Brahmins, right? So there's no caste system, right? You don't submit to the priest, right? Anybody could become enlightened if they follow their own self-transformation. You must work out your own salvation. That's the name of the game here for Buddhism. Nobody's going to save you. You are going to save yourself. Right? And that's mad work. And let me show you how much work it is. But let me give you an example before I go to the actual tenets of Buddhism. Let me give you some history, right? So I love history. I sincerely think that to understand any kind of ism, any kind of idea, right, you need to, like socialism or capitalism or Buddhism or Hinduism, any kind of ism, that's what I mean by that. Any kind of idea in this world, in this whole universe, you need to understand its historical context. I strongly believe that. If you don't know what happened, how that thing got there, then you're just talking crap out of your ass, basically. So let's give you some kind of like history of how Buddhism came about, right? So it's kind of the Buddha, right? It's just this teacher, right? Just this enlightened one. It's the first one that really got there, and then spread his teachings to us. Right. So the biography goes kind of like this of the Buddha. The historical sketch, biographical sketch of the Buddha goes like this. See this prince, Siddhartha Gautama, Hermann Hesse, Siddhartha, another appropriation of Buddhism, another Western author. Okay. Anyways, so the Siddhartha guy, Siddhartha Gautama, he's a prince, and he lives fucking comfortably. Right, Gautama Buddha, he became known later on once he became enlightened. But he was born around 563 BCE in the kingdom of Sakaya in northern India. Right, in this where what we're talking about right now, the Hindus River Valley, right, northern India up there, by the Himalayas, basically, up there. So this guy Siddhartha, right, this prince, young prince, very handsome, very good looking, right, is the son of a very, very powerful king from this kingdom of Sakaya. And the king had this, I guess, this vision, I don't know, this forsooth, right? Somebody foretold him that his son, this guy Siddhartha, is going to become either one of two things. He's either going to become a very powerful king or a very influential monk. The only way that he's going to become a powerful king, and that's what the father wanted, I forgot his name, it's somewhere here in your book, is that he needs to stay in the palace and not go outside to the outside world and experience anguish and pain. He needs to be kept, isolated from that, or else he's going to become a monk. Right? So, the king tries so hard to do that, exactly that. Right? He tries to keep this prince inside the palace, right? Has many wives, right? Many consorts, right? Basically, many prostitutes, right? Has everything he wants, basically. And when he does go outside, the city to the market or whatever, like everything's cleaned up. All the bad stuff is cleaned up. So when this prince Siddhartha goes, everything looks all nice and pretty and shit. Right? And one day he escapes the fucking palace one night. And then he has the myth goes like this is a myth. It's not, there's some historical fragments here and there, but it's kind of hard to really verify this stuff. I'll believe it, right? I'll take this for faith. But this guy escapes the palace at night one day, and he has the four sights. This is the myth, the four sights. The four passing sights. So first he's out there, he's walking, and he sees, A decrepit old man. Right. First, is a decrepit old man. Yeah, first he sees a decrepit old man. This guy that's like in the con un bastón with a cane, right? He's barely could walk. He's like, holy shit, that must be painful, right? Poor old man, right? All his life, right? This guy's like 29 years old or something at this time. All of his life, up until he's 29 years old, he's seen nothing but good things. And then one day he first sees this old man with a cane walking, obviously hurting, alone, decrepit old man. He's like, fuck, that sucks. Wow. It's mind blown, right? Then he keeps walking, right? This Arta prince keeps walking. Then he sees a disease, man. Oh, fucking, sick, super sick, right? Some kind of plague just attacked him. I don't know what it was. But he sees this super sick man in pain, groaning. And he's like, holy shit, man. This pain is getting worse, you know? So I keep walking, like this anguish around people around me is getting worse. What the fuck? It's the first time I see this. And then the third side, it's a dead man, right? It's on the side of the road, just dead. Like, oh fuck. Is this what life is about? You realize it's like, what the fuck? And then the fourth side, right? It's the four sites, right? So it's three sites right here. Decrepit old man, deceased man, dead man. And the fourth side, he sees this old samana, wise old man, this guy that's living the ascetic life. Think about the forest treatises and Hinduism. That you go out there in the forest and you just try to isolate yourself and meditate by yourself and do rituals by yourself to reach moksha. There's one of those. There's Siddhartha guy. After seeing these three sites, he sees finally this guy that's just very very relaxed and very calm. He's like, you know what? I want to be that. I don't want to be the old decrepit man. I don't want to be the diseased man. I don't want to be a dead man. I want to be a wise man. So that's where after that, he dedicates his life to following this wise man. And actually, he spends like the next 6 years, as the story goes, um, just going through different sects, different religious sects, different sections of the religions, right? He goes to some people that are super extremely ascetic, that they don't eat. They only eat like one bowl of rice a day and a little bit of water, right? Even or a week or something like that. They just like devoid themselves of any physical or mental or pleasure, any kind of pleasure, and just purely just meditate themselves this way. And he realizes like, man, I'm just making me worse. Like this is not helping out at all. This is not the way. And he goes to another like I guess like religious I guess cult you can call them or sects, CESTS, and they're all about partying and shit like that, right? Fucking finding liberation that way, and he loves it, but it's not the right way. He kind of gets tired of it, right? He gets burned out partying. Right? Happens, should happen. So he kind of like, right? He's just wandering around for 6 years, basically, just experimenting with different ways of practicing, trying to reach this liberation that this samana, this wise man, apparently seemingly had, right? This calmness, this coolness. Even though everything around him was all fucked up, he saw this wise man, right? This foresight, just chilling, right? And he had reached peace, right? And this is what we call the middle path, right? This is one of the ways, one of the dharmas, right? One of our dharmic ways to like reach nirvana, right? So let's get into the teaching of Buddha. So this is the Buddha, right? So that's how we get Buddha. So let me finish off the story of Buddha, right? So 6 years, and he goes off on his own, and he has some followers, and he goes under this tree, this Bodhi tree, the tree of wisdom, and he's meditating for a whole day, for a whole night, and bam, it finally snaps into him, like what you're supposed to do. Like he finally reaches this nirvana, this enlightenment, and then for a couple more years, goes around India and just spreads his word of what he found out. It's basically just like a guideline, right? It's called the Dharma, right? The way of, I guess, goodwill. It's all about that. It's about goodwill, about good intentions. And then he dies an old man, and he tells his And he tells his followers, like, don't praise me, don't revere me. I'm not a god. Like, I'm just an example. Like, follow my teachings. Salvation is really up to you. Right? This journey is yours. Right? So this responsibility is for the self. All right. So let's go into the tenets, the teachings of the Buddha. Right? So what is it that he gave us? It's supposed to be pragmatic. It's supposed to be useful. Right? These guidelines. Right? So this dharma, right? This is how to live correctly, basically. How to live with correct intentions and correct actions. That's all it is, really. Then he gives more specifics, right? But this dharma, right, is the heart of, I guess, this way of living correctly. And one of the main components of dharma is what's called the Four Noble Truths. So what is the Four Noble Truths? The first noble truth is this: all life is suffering. The realization that life is suffering. From birth to death, life is suffering. That's the first truth. Right? The realization of that truth. The second truth: suffering is caused. The suffering, right, of all life is caused by desires, right? By this craving, by this thirst, right? Both physical and emotional and whatever, right? These desires that we have, right? Whatever it is, right? For a hamburger, right? As mundane as that, or for like love, right? You desire this. This is what's giving you pain. And all life is that pain, right? So you have first, all life is suffering. This suffering is caused by desires. That's the second truth. The third truth is in order to banish this suffering, you first need to banish the desires. Right? That's the third truth of life. And the final fourth truth is the way to banish desires and to end all this suffering is by following the eightfold path. Right? The noble eightfold path. Right? So all life is suffering. That's number one. Number two, suffering is caused by desires, by this craving, this thirst. Number three, to banish this craving, this thirst, all these desires, this suffering, you need to banish the desires. And the way to banish desires, that's the fourth truth now, is that you need to follow the noble eightfold path. So there's 8 guidelines to follow in order for you to banish these desires that would thus end the suffering that would thus lead you to nirvana. It's Buddhism here, right? In a nutshell, right? The Four Noble Truths. So dukkha, right? This is the principle of dukkha, dukkha, that life is suffering, right? And one of the reasons why we have these desires, right? One of the main desires is just is egoistic, basically. Right? Let's talk about these two terms: anicca, 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 and then anatta, anatta. So anicca basically means impermanence. It means that it's the fact that things do not last. This chai tea right here, as delicious as it is, it's not gonna last. The car that I own, as much as I love it, and we've been to crazy adventures with it, me and him. It's a her actually, stallion. Um, this white stallion, that's what we call her. Anyways, this car is not gonna last, right? And it's gonna bring pain. It's gonna bring me suffering when it breaks down, and I have to like get rid of it, and again get in debt again. I have to buy another car, right? Extreme painful. So I gotta keep good care of it, right? But I did because I desire though, right, to keep it in good condition, right? Or whatever, right? Right? Things do not last. Things are impermanent. Everything is fleeting. Everything is absolutely fleeting. This textbook, when I first got it, it was in nice condition. Now I use electrical tape. because that's all the tape I had to keep it together. Right? Things are impermanent. Right? Everything. Right? I think about your ex-boyfriends and girlfriends or ex-significant others, right? Or your dogs that you lost, or cats, right? Your pets, right? Shit is painful, right? It's because things don't last. Things don't last. This is the principle of anicca, impermanence. Things are impermanent. Things are not permanent. Things are impermanent. Right? Things will not last. So let's realize it first. Let's get that. And then anatta. You, the self, this ego, right? This representational ego that I have, me, right? Whether me as a teacher, whether me as a friend, or whether me as a lover, or whether me as a brother or father or whatever, that is not gonna last either. Right? Anatta, the impermanence of the self. Okay, so we have anicca, the impermanence of like the things other than self, that's like external, and then more internal, anatta, the self. That is also fleeting, right? You're not gonna stay young, right? No one here is Dorian Gray, where your pictures get old, but you get younger, right? And there's nothing like that, right? You guys haven't read that book, Oscar Wilde, The Picture of Dorian Gray? Read it. It's fucking fantastic. But it's not like that, right? Life is not like that, right? You getting old, everybody's getting old, right? We ourselves are impermanent. We are fleeting, right? This is anatta, right? That illusion that we try to fix ourselves. Oh, I'm gonna be a lawyer for the rest of my life. I'm gonna be. I know I'm bullying lawyers. I'm gonna be a judge. I'm gonna be a cop. Right? I'm gonna be a philosopher, right? For the rest of my life. That illusion of trying to fix your ego to a certain point, that's gonna bring you suffering. And that's one of the main desires that's gonna bring you suffering. It's anatta. So the way to extinguish, right, is what nirvana means. Nirvana is also a badass band from the 90s, not gonna lie. Amazing fucking band. One of my favorite bands ever. Right? I like Minor Threat, I like the Pixies, I like Nirvana. Keep up, guys. Anyways, nirvana, right, it means literally extinguish. Extinguish what? These desires, right? Anicca and anatta, primarily, right? These desires to think that things are gonna last, this desire to think that I'm gonna last myself, that I am not, I have a fixed point. Everything's fleeting, everything's in a flux, right? And this goes with some pre-Socratics, right? Everything's in flux, right? Everything's, you don't step into the same river twice, right? Nirvana. Once you reach this state of nirvana, right? It's a state of bliss, right? It's not really a place. It's not really like heaven or paradise. It's a state of being, right? So you can reach nirvana while you're alive here, and that's the whole fucking point, right? It's not like you can have like cycles of, you know. It's like you gotta reach it here where you can by doing good deeds, right? And if you can, there is reincarnation. They do believe in that. Buddhism depends on what Buddhism you follow. Okay, but nirvana though, that's the ultimate goal here. It's like moksha, liberation, right? But it's nirvana, extinguish the desires. Once you reach nirvana, you have no desires, right? You realize these things. In a person who finally extinguishes the flames of these desires, right, and thus halts this repeating pattern of death and rebirth, right, samsara, is an arat. That's what they call him. Arhat, arat. The perfected person, the one who is worthy, right? The worthy one. Right. So here you're also stuck in samsara. You're stuck in a cycle of reincarnation. Right. And it's only by following the four truths, right? The Dharma, 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 that you will reach nirvana, okay, and become an arat. All right. So let's talk about. So we talked about what else? So let's talk about karma here. How karma works in Buddhism. So there's samsara, right? There is the cycle that we're stuck on, or birth and rebirth. And it is this I, right? There's this desire to maintain this I, right? This ego that's giving you suffering. That's get away from that ego-ness, right? That egoistic approach to yourself to reach liberation from the samsara. Right? Karma, right? So just like in Hinduism, it's like this force that regulates your cycle, right? So as long as you do good deeds, you're gonna have a good karmic cycle. If you do bad, you're gonna go retrograde. You're gonna go backwards. From a human, become a cockroach, right? Or from a human, become a rat, become a cockroach, or forward, right? It depends on your karma. Right? But unlike Hinduism, though, right, there's this Atman, right, that's stuck there in this samsara, right? It's not subject to this. It's not really submitted. Does not submit, right? It's not subject to karma. In Buddha's view, right, in the Buddha's teaching, right, no one is trapped in this in a given level of existence, but karma, good deeds, though, are the way towards liberation. Though. So you're not trapped in a case forever, right, in your lifetime. But karma, though, is really important nonetheless in order to reach good nirvana. So pretty much by doing good karmic actions, deeds, right, by maintaining good karma, by doing good deeds, right, not because you're subject to it, but because you really want to, that is the road towards liberation. So there's no authority central figure like forcing you to do things here. You're doing it on your own fucking will, or your own self. That's what Buddhism kind of differs from Hinduism here. Right? All right. So there's four. So there's four noble truths, right? All life is suffering, right? The suffering is caused um, by these desires. Uh, to banish, to extinguish the desires, or this suffering. To banish the suffering, to end the suffering, you must first extinguish desires. And the way to extinguish desires is to follow the eightfold path. This eightfold path, this so-called noble eightfold path, um, there's like 8 guidelines or 8 factors or 8 recommendations that you should follow all the time in order for you to reach nirvana, to reach that extinguishing point of no more desires. Okay? And there's 3 fundamental aspects that these 8 guidelines, these eightfold paths, right? Margas, right? The margas, hit on, right? Right. So for like Buddhism, there's 3 fundamental aspects of life that you always gotta be good at. Not good like being like really competitive, but like just like goodwill, right? Benevolent. So wisdom, right? Moral conduct, and then your mental discipline. Right? This is what the Noble Eightfold Path help you refine and make better. Is your wisdom, your moral conduct, and your mental discipline. In the way that the Buddha discovered this eightfold path, right? It's not just out of nowhere. It's just like he didn't get up from like it didn't just come out of nowhere. Wow, right? Kind of did, kind of not, right? It's also based on his experiences, right? The way he justifies his eightfold path, the Buddha, is this middle path, right? So think about the story that I gave you about the Buddha, right? That he spent 6 years just experimenting with different religious ways of trying to reach nirvana, trying to reach peace, right? From extreme asceticism to extreme pleasure, hedonism. right? He tried it all. He found that in the middle, that's the way to go. This middle path, not to like becoming ascetic and becoming like isolated and denying yourself all kinds of pleasure. That's not going to work. Or the opposite, the other extreme, fulfilling all your wants and desires and pleasures. That's not going to work either. Somewhere in the middle is where the enlightenment is going to happen. The middle path. Um, this is in between path between extreme and brutal asceticism and sensual self-indulgence. Right? Think about Aristotle here, right? Where do you think Aristotle got his ideas from, right? Right, the middle, the golden mean. Right? How do you become a virtuous person? By the golden mean. It says virtual ethics, the Aristotelian ethics. Same thing here, right? Now this, mind you, precedes Aristotle for about 1,000 years. So who copied who? Just do your math, right? All right, so the Eightfold Path, the Noble Eightfold Path, though, very important nonetheless. The Buddha gave us this, right? So he found the Eightfold Path, this 8 guidelines towards nirvana, in order for us to extinguish desires, for us to extinguish suffering, in order for us to end all, and to become the Arhat, an enlightened one, a worthy one, is by these eightfold paths. Number 1, right understanding. So have a deep understanding of reality and nature. Right? This is just not just an intellectual grasp of facts, but more importantly, a profound insight of how things are in themselves. It's a very, very, very famous philosopher's phrase, the things in themselves. Right? Try to train the mind to find things as they are, free of all these other spiritual and emotional impediments. Right? Right understanding. Number 1. Number 2, right thought. This is like your motivations, your intentions behind your understanding. Right? Is the right thought. Have the right thoughts. Right? Have the right intentions when you're going to understand something. Right? And what are the right motivations? You should be selfless. You should be compassionate. You should be nonviolent. Ahimsa is a really important concept in Buddhism. Ahimsa, the concept of ahimsa, right? The concept of nonviolence. You don't do violence unto others or other animals or to other sentient beings because of karma. You never know if you're hurting somebody else that you might know, or one of your ancestors. Or maybe worse, when you become reincarnated as something worse because you sucked at life, I guess, right? We all suck at life. I suck at life, right? Let's be honest here, right? You don't want to get hurt by somebody else, right? So this ahimsa of non-violence, of doing no harm to others, sentient beings, right? Beings that feel, right? Humans and non-human animals as well, and plants even, right? Is so important, right? It's the right motivation. So non-violence, right? Gentleness and love. Right? So you have right understanding and right thought. This encapsulates wisdom. For the perfection of moral conduct, you need number 3, right speech, right? Avoid slander, avoid from shit talking, avoid from lying and gossiping and rude and unkind words, right? Avoid abusive and malicious words, right? Be truthful, be kind, be constructive, be fostering, harmonious, and be trustworthy when you speak to others. Number 4, right action. This involves the so-called Buddha's 5 precepts, his 5 insights. Number 1, harming living beings. Uh, refrain, avoid harming other living beings. Living beings, right? This is what I call ahimsa, right? Just now. Number 2, taking what is not giving, stealing, basically, right? It's one of the insights. Don't do this. Right? Don't engage in, I guess, how can I say it, abusive sexual or sensual pleasures. Right? Don't misconduct yourself in such instances. The fourth precept of Buddha is avoid from lying or speaking falsely. And the fifth precept, insight for Buddha, is avoid impairing your minds with intoxicating substances. Train your mind to be pure. With this insights, these precepts in mind, you have number 4 of the Eightfold Path, right action. Number 5, right livelihood. So you avoid jobs or professions. Right? So a livelihood, how are you going to make your livelihood? How are you going to survive? For a Buddhist, you're going to avoid a job or profession that hurts others. You're going to follow the principle of ahimsa, even for your livelihood. So like, I hate to say it, but like, some cops, right, and some military personnel do harm others, right? They're just following orders, granted, but they're nonetheless harming other people. And thus, as a Buddhist, you're not going to reach nirvana because of your profession, right? So if you're a cop, become a firefighter instead. More helpful. That's my own thoughts. Right livelihood, number 5. Avoid jobs or professions that involve harming other living beings. Right? So don't avoid becoming like a trafficker in weapons, right? Raytheon, right? Boeing, who else? Norman Guthrum or whatever. All these weapons manufacturers, yeah, not gonna reach nirvana. Right? Colt, Winchester, right? Glock, right? Go on and on, right? Beretta, right? I could go on and on. Right? It's fucking so sad how this is infinite, how the type of guns you can get, manufacturers. But here we are, 2020, 21st century. Right? Avoid being a drug dealer, right? Avoid, just the right livelihood, right? Basically, avoid professions or jobs that are going to harm other living beings. That's the 5th noble Eightfold Path. Number 6, the right effort. Right? This goes again with your right intentions, right? Your motivations. Right? When you're going to do something, do it wholesomely. Not because they force you to do something, right? Do it because you want to, and you're doing it because out of your kindness of your heart, out of compassion, out of love, out of gentleness. Not because out of reward or something like that, right? Not because you're going to get a reward. Do it because of these other right, mindful motivations. Right? Again, compassion, selflessness, right? That's like the main motivations you should aspire to. Number 7, right mindfulness. This kind of goes into like doing yoga and meditation, right? It's kind of like being aware, extraordinarily aware of your here and now. Everywhere you go, there you are. Right? Don't get lagged on in the past, or don't get too caught up with the future. You ain't there yet, or you ain't there no more. Whether it's the past or the future, the past is now. Live in the now, right? Have that right mindfulness. Be extraordinarily aware of the here and now, right? Of your bodily processes, of your mental capacities, of your attitudes, of your emotional tendencies, of your outbursts, even, right? Be aware of how you are, right? That's right mindfulness, right? Being mindful avoids us when getting us into harmful situations, right? So think about being mindful, right? Always our minds are always jumping from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, right? This monkey brain, as Harvard Sabat-Sin calls it, right? This monkey brain that we have, always jumping from one thing to the next. I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta pick up the kids, I gotta do this, whatever, right? Fine. Sometimes that's where meditation helps out. Meditations is like you're trying to like control that brain. So like, you know what? Just focus on your breathing and try to relax your brain for one moment or a couple of minutes. Try to clear up your brain And then go back to reality, right mindfulness. And this goes back. This complements all these eightfold paths, right? Complement each other. It's not one or the other. You got to do all these eight paths to reach nirvana. Right concentration. That's the last one, number 8. Development through meditation of a sublime inner peace and profound mental acuity. And you reach tranquility by becoming mindful and concentrating, by meditating. And that's the eightfold path. And that's the way towards nirvana. Right? The Four Noble Truths, right? The 5 precepts, the eightfold path. All right, so that's Buddhism. You can tell I love Buddhism. I kind of dabbled in that for a little while when I was in high school and my early years in college, community college. I thought I was going to go off to Tibet. But here I am, no passing, living my life nonetheless. Right, let's talk about Daoism. Right, so another Eastern philosophy is more now going to away from India now to China. So we get a map where we're at now in China now. So Daoism been around for over 2,000 years as well. Still initially molding Chinese culture as we speak, right? Same with Confucianism, but we just talked about in a little bit too. So Daoism, Confucianism, two of the main, I guess, like ancient religions, Chinese ancient religions that still are very powerful influences in the culture of modern China. Talk about Daoism first. So what is Daoism? What is Dao? So it's a Dao, right? D-A-O or T-A-O, whatever, Dao. We're westernizing a Chinese alphabet here. So Daoism, basically, it means the way, or the way of nature, the path, the way of nature. That's Daoism. Right. Kind of reminds me of like the nature of things. Somewhere over here. On the nature of things, Lucretius, right? It's going to be a philosopher we'll talk about in chapter 7, right? The Hellenistic philosophers. Anyways, Dao, the way, Daoism, right? So it's a credit the founding guy, I guess one of the main founding philosophers of this ancient Eastern tradition is Lao Tzu. He's the one that wrote the Tao Te Ching, or the Classic of the Way, and its power. That's the way it's pronounced, translated, the Tao Te Ching. Real famous, perhaps like the most, if you want to call it like the text for Taoism, is the Tao Te Ching. Of course, just like Buddhism and Hinduism, there is no one Bible, right? There is no one book that is the all truth. There is no one God, right? It's just nature is God. As a matter of fact, here, right? It's more like pantheistic here. That God is nature, and you follow the way of nature, right? Very much to like Thomas Aquinas later on. All right, so the Tao Te Ching, very important piece of literature and Eastern traditions. He probably lived, this guy Lao Tzu, the author of this Tao Te Ching, he lived around probably the 6th century BCE, so the 500s BCE, so around the eras when Socrates and Aristotle and Plato were around that time period around there, right? From the pre-Socratics, right? So when ancient Greek philosophy was flourishing, this guy was also writing his stuff here, right? Also, philosophy was flourishing on the other side of the world, right? So this was an attempt to get away from our Eurocentric view of the world. The philosophy began with Plato, and then Socrates and Aristotle and those 3 guys. No. Other people at the same time, even before, as we saw with Hinduism and Buddhism, thousands of years before, were doing philosophy. Okay, so now, Lao Tzu, right? He is a historical figure. He did exist, right? There are some evidence of him existing. And he's a contemporary of Confucius, right? Who wrote the Analects, right? So they were living in the same time period. They probably had known each other, and at least their arguments or their doctrines, right? All right. So the Tao, it's kind of like the karma in Heraclitus. It's like the first principle of the world, of the universe. It's the first thing, right? It is the eternal source of all things. Right? It's what makes everything and destroys everything. It's the Tao, right? Uh, how can I say? It's like this the real and invisible and eternal, transcendent process that underpins everything in the world, in the universe. Tao holds everything together. It is what makes everything go, right? Think about Aristotle, the unmoved mover, or think about Heraclitus, the logos. Right? Same thing here, the Tao. That's what we call it. Right? So how do we know about these people, right? So a little bit of history here, because I love history, of course. So historian Simatan, around 110 BCE, it starts to collect and write down, right? So smriti, right? What was heard, right? What was remembered now, written down now. We're writing this down now. Taoist ideas that have been around for at least 200 centuries before this guy. So a lot of these Taoist ideas, besides the Tao Te Ching, comes from this historian Sima Tan, right? So again, right, it's this transmission of these religious philosophical texts are not complete, filtered down, right? It's been after the fact, and this is one of the main, I guess, characteristics of our religions. Right? You're not going to find the word. It's been filtered through many people, many centuries. Right? So it's only around the Han Dynasty in China, which is around 100 BCE, that we actually have written records of Daoism. Right? So as a historian, this is your medium, your bread and butter, right? Written documents, right? Anyways, Daoism was not the only school of thought there back then, right? Confucianism, I mentioned that before. There was a yin yang. You could find that out. Dialectical thinking. There was monist. There was legalist. There was a school of names, and then there was a Taoist. Right? So the legalists were all about follow the law, right? You gotta follow the law or you're wrong. Sounds like today's world, right? School of names, which is like the great people. You gotta follow the great ancestors, right? The monists believing in one thing as well, but it was less about nature, but more about abstract. And you have the yin yang, which is a dialectical thinking, or opposites, right? The world is made through opposite forces. And then you have the Taoists, which is like this, what we're talking about right now, right? The way of nature. And then you have the Confucians, which is like, kind of like a mixture of all of these, especially the legalists and the Taoists together. Anyways, Taoism. So you have Lao-Tzu, Zhuangzi, some important figures here. The Tao Te Ching, saying that the way, right? And basically, you just do not interfere with nature. It's understanding the nature of reality, right? Let me give you some important, I guess, concepts in Taoism. One of the most important ones is this notion of Wu Wei, W-U-W-E-A, Wu Wei. And Wu Wei is literally translated as effortless action. So it's not like this passive notion where you just let things go and let things be. Like you are actively happening and you are actively acting, right? You are an active participant in the world, but you don't force things, right? Say if you're building like I don't know, you're fixing a car, right? Let's use an example of a car. And there's like a screw that just doesn't fit there. You're not gonna fucking force it and break something else, right? You know, like see, try to trying to understand the nature of reality. Or you know what? Maybe this tool that I have, it's not the right tool. Let me look for another one. Right? Don't force things in nature. Right? Be like a river, basically. Be like water. Right? Do your thing. Right? Water does its thing. Right? It goes. It flows. Right? But flow where it's easier. Right? Meander and stuff. Let nature guide you, basically. So do your thing, but let nature be a guide. Be an example, right? So Buddhism is the example, the teacher. Here's nature as a teacher, right? Right. When you do things, whatever you do, right? Do it effortless action, right? Do it with nature, right? Find the harmony that nature has, right? There's harmony in nature, right? When you put a seed in dirt and water falls on it, right? When it rains, and then there's sun, all that harmony creates a plant, right? It's nature, right? Or when two opposite sexes combine, whether it's human or non-human, and they procreate, right? They get down, you're gonna have offsprings, right? It's nature, right? There's harmony in us, right? Things are harmonious in nature. Follow that harmony. That's the way. Understand the nature of reality to understand the underlying harmony in nature to guide you towards a better way of life. And it's going to give you longevity. You're going to live longer, right? If you live in this harmoniously with nature, right? Stuff like that, right? You're going to live more. You're going to be more orderly, right? Your life's going to be more ordered and structured with nature. Right? You're going to have more moral outlook. You're going to perfect your morality and stuff. So that's Wu Wei, or also another concept, Ciran, or Ciran, Ciran, which is called naturalness. Right? So just go with the flow, right? Be natural, right? And then we also have the concept of Shegren, or sage, right? Is a wise person, or Senren, the perfected person, the worthy person, one that knows the way, right? And everybody could know the way, right? If you just become harmonious as nature is, follow nature as a guidebook. And then of course Dao, right? The way. Right? And unfortunately, that's all I know. Right? I wish I knew about Daoism. Right? But that's all I'm going to give you. So let's move on with Confucianism. So Confucianism, right, around the same time period, and it's named after this guy, Master. What's his name? Master Kung. That's what it's Confucius. Kung Fu. Confucius. Confucius. Master Kung, right? Kung Fu Su. Or Kung Chu. Right? Westerners, right? We Europeans are terrible at translating, right, what we hear into our own vocabulary. Right? So you know that they have like pictographs, right? The alphabet, they don't have an alphabet over there. They have pictographs. So every Chinese symbol means it's like a picture, like a little picture, right? And it has meaning, and it has like a unique phonetic sound. You cannot combine, right, or try to combine these like letters. You don't have like individual letters we combine to create. It's a different alphabet, right? So when you translate from Chinese to the European alphabet, Roman alphabet that we have, right, you have different translations. Right? That's where you have Dao with a T or Thou with a D. Depends if it was a British or a Portuguese who was translating this, right? This is called colonialism. Okay. Anyways, Confucianism. All right, same time period as Daoism, right? So again, Lao Tzu and Master Kung were contemporaries. So around 551 BCE, 563 BCE, around that era, right? And he claimed to create nothing new. All he claimed to be is to transmit ancient wisdom to his own contemporary world. Because what he saw when he was living, it was just a bunch of little nations, little kingdoms, right, with warlords fighting each other. Basically, China was in a civil war. And Confucius was seeing all this chaos around him, and he's like, yo, man, the reason why we're in chaos because we lost our reverence, practice of our ancient traditions. We got to go back. MAGA, but this time is make China great again. Basically, that's what he was going for. He was a very conservative person. He was go back to the traditions. That's going to bring you harmony back to this civilization, this society that's in chaos right now. So he merely claimed to be transmitting the wisdom of the ancients to this new generation. Right? So Master Kong, right? That's all he was doing. He didn't create nothing new at all. According to him, that's what he claims. So what is it? So his big emphasis was on rituals and the correct performance. The veneration, right? The reverence of our ancestors. The emphasis on social and cosmic harmony. Right? And a heavy emphasis on virtuous behaviors and ideals. Right? And the will of heaven, Tian, right? T-I-N, the Tian, right? Which was the ultimate power and organizing principle of the universe. So Daoism, right? They have the Tao as this organizing principle of the whole universe, right? Hinduism and Buddhism has karma as that, right? This organizing force of the whole universe. Right? Heraclitus, the pre-Socratic, has the logos. Right? Confucius, Master Kong, he has the Tian, Tian, right? The will of heaven. It's the will of heaven, and we gotta follow, be harmonious, and follow that. Right? So again, unfortunately, I'm not really well versed in Confucianism. I apologize for that, but let me give you what a little bit I know right from here. There's two. I guess there's a couple of concepts I guess I want you to learn from me. First one first two is Li and Ren, Li and Ren, Li and Ren. Right. So the ideal world, the harmony of the world, right, is kind of generated through these two forces, Li and Ren. Right. So Li is like the proper etiquette of rituals, the proper way of adhering to these principles of our ancients. Propriety, basically, Li, being proper, proprio, nice and proper. And then Ren, basically, Li is like behavior in our actions, being right, being good, being benevolent, being compassionate, right, being proper behaviors and proper actions, Li. And then Ren, the other, I guess, ideal or force that gives us an ideal harmonious world is Ren is more about it's more like society. It's about society at large. It's about social virtues. So Li is more like individual level, and Ren is more at a societal level, right? So it's about the common good, basically. So individual good and common good, Li and Ren. And then we have this notion of reciprocity that kind of is the behind the underpinnings of these forces, right? You want to be good, right, both to yourself and to society, to others, so that others are good to you, to yourself, right? Reciprocity, shu, that's what it's called, SHU, shu. And in Confucius, right, if you're thinking about in Christian terms, right, this sounds like the golden rule, because it basically is the golden rule. Do unto others what you want done unto you. But in Confucianism, it's more than it's termed negatively. It's in negative terms. So instead of do unto others, they emphasize never do to others what you would not, right, like them to do to you, right? So they emphasize the negative parts. And this makes sense, right? The historical context of Confucius, shit was going astray around him, right? Things were not really that good. So don't do to others what you don't want others not do to you, right? So it's a negative um, mirror reflection of the golden rule. Li Ren. And the person who kind of masters these forces, Li and Ren, is a Junzi. 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 A superior person, a noble person, a Junzi. Okay? So somebody who has true nobility. Right? And so for him, for Confucius, right, there is no hierarchies. Right? Well, there is in society, right? But you could be a Junzi, a superior person, a noble person, not because of your blood, but of your adherence to these doctrines of Li and Ren and of filial piety, which we're going to be talking about right now. And this is all written in the Analects. This is the main text, Confucian text that we have, the Analects. So living in Ri and in Ren requires self-cultivation and action, learning the moral norms, understanding the virtues of society, and acting and applying these virtues and moral norms to your everyday life. This is what a superior person is, a Junzi. All right. And then filial piety, right, is also really important, right? So for him, just like kind of like Plato, he had like a distinct way that society should be organized, that the world should be organized. And for him, it was like this. It was really patriarchal, right? And there was a hierarchy that was to follow. So the state should be organized just like the family is. So in the family, you have the father and the mother. And the mother has to submit to the father, according to Confucianism, right? And just like the son has to submit to the father, right? Or the younger brother has to submit to the older brother, right? Or the father has to submit to his father, right? So there's a hierarchy of submission, of respect to your elders, right? And just like that, the father of the nation you submit to, right? As a citizen, you got to submit to your king. But in return, shu, right, reciprocity, that king or your father is going to take care of that family or the nation. Right? So that's how you become harmonious, right? Respect your king, and the king is going to give you what you need, security and food and whatnot, right? This kind of goes along well with what Thomas Hobbes later on in modern philosophy has with the Leviathan, right? Where you give up some of your personal freedoms, and you revere the king in order for the king to protect you. Or you give up your own personal freedom as a rebellious teenager and you submit to your parents' authority. And thus your parents give you a cell phone, right? Or a car and a place to live and food, right? That's Confucianism, right? This filial piety, right? You're pious, you're faithful to this filial relationship. And this is best embodied between the father and the son. Right? The son always has to submit to the father, right? And like I said, this is really both of these, Daoism and Confucianism, right? Especially with this filial piety and this way of nature with Daoism, is very apparent with Chinese culture today, right? Whereas in in the U.S., right, in American culture, right, North American culture, it's all about the individual, right? You gotta make it or break it, right? You gotta become rich, right? That's where you're gonna go to school. You can be fucking rich, right? Fuck your neighbor, right? Whatever. Put a wall and a fence across your neighbors, right? And your parents, well, you stick them in a fucking retirement home, and you go visit them on Sundays, right? And that's the American way of life, right? I'm exaggerating, of course, right? I'm kind of being obnoxious too, but you get the drift here, right? And that is kind of like a thing, though, right here. That would be unthinkable over there in China. Well, now it is. Now it's becoming more and more common. But if you're like a strict traditional Chinese family, like you follow Confucianism or Taoism, like you're not gonna stick your fucking parents, your grandparents in a retirement home. You're not gonna take care of them until you die, not until they die, because they're probably gonna outlive you, right? Until you die, right? The rest of your life is all about the community, about your family, right? It's not about your individual self, right? It's about your own family. And Might be a good thing, might be a bad thing. I don't know, right? I'm not here to say that that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's the way things are or were, right? Or sometimes are, right? And it could be explained by this influence of Confucianism and Daoism, right? I mean, I don't want to sound stereotypical here, right? Not every Chinese family is like this, of course not. Just like not every American family sticks their grandparents in a retirement home. But you get the drift here, right? There's different cultures because there's different historical trajectories to deal with here. All right, this is Confucianism. So now let's move on very quickly to another Eastern philosophy, and this is off the mainland of Japan, China, and into Japan, right? One of the islands right there. In Shintoism, and it's all about also about the elders, right? And it has really a lot of same similarities with Confucianism, especially with the veneration of ancestors. So Shintoism means the way of the god of Shinto. Shinto, Shinto, is the way of the gods. So in Daoism is the way of nature. Here is the way of the gods. So there's gods out there, right? So it's a way of for you to connect with the past with the present day. That's kind of like the point of Shintoism. And the way you do it is you have like these super holy shrines, and you go and meditate and pray. You try to be as pure as possible to the original, way of praying and rituals, in order for you to connect to that past, to your ancestors. Okay? So it's kind of like you reach that kind of like salvation through diligent rituals. Okay? And one of the really cool, I guess, like concepts that they have, this Shintoism, is this concept of the kami, or you translate it as spirits. So kami. So these kamis are like spirits, or like little gods, and they're everywhere, fucking nature, all around us, everything. In this book, every single book in this house, every single object in your surroundings has it's like a little spirit inside of there. Right? Everything, kami resides in all things. That's where the kamis resides, little spirits, little gods. Right? They don't live separate from people. The gods are here, living with us, and we're interrelated in some very complex ways, right? But there are certain places and certain objects that serve like the interface between the world of the spirit, the world of the kamis, and our world. So there are certain places in Japan, like where they set up shrines where you can connect yourself with the past. Oh, shit. Right? Pretty cool, I think. Right? And that's all as far as I know about Shintoism. I wish I knew more. Right? So that's Eastern philosophies. I want to end this lecture with another non-Western philosophy, and this is Aztec or Mexica, 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 thought or philosophy, or Nahuatl, and this is more close to my home, right in Mesoamerica, namely in Tenochtitlan. So now we're going to Mexico City. All right. So if you go to Mexico City nowadays, you could actually visit these beautiful archaeological sites like Tenochtitlan and Teotihuacan, which is even older than Tenochtitlan. But anyways, the Aztec world. Now let's move on to the Aztec world, right? Los Aztecas, right? So Tenochtitlan, right? So before the Aztecs, there was the Olmecas or the Chichimecas. There's all these indigenous people, but I know more about the Aztecs. Okay, so you get what I know. Okay, but they're a good I guess example, not because they're the most famous ones, I guess, because they're the ones that fought with Hernando Cortez, and they were the ones that had contact with the Europeans in 1520, but also because they adopted these older traditions of the Olmecas and the Chichimecas and the Tehuacanos and whatever it would name you. A good resource, I actually uploaded it in that folder of Aztec philosophy, is by this Mexican scholar Miguel León Portilla, and I give you a short article about actual poems from Aztec warriors and Aztec philosophers, flower poems, that's what they're called. And they kind of showcase how these poems are very in depth, right? Very intellectually in depth. They're not just about flowers and nature, but they have like this really deep way of thinking about reality, right? This really deep metaphysics that are found in these flower poems. So that's what this that birth of philosophy among the Nahuatls. That's what that article is about, and I really, really recommend you to read it. It's pretty cool. But I also recommend this book here by the same guy, Miguel León de Portilla. And I know if you're an expert in this is like the Hollywood version, kind of. This guy, at least, there's more experts, there's more specialists that are way better than Miguel León de Portilla, but it's really accessible for us, especially for the Western audience. So he collected like I guess some codices um, that were collections of supposedly the writings of Aztecs. Basically, the Broken Spears, this book here, is the account of the contact between Aztecs and the conquistadors from Spain, Cortez stuff, and his army. And it's a really cool read because you get the point of view of the Aztecs, right? Usually you get the point of view of the Europeans, right? The superiority of the Europeans. Here it kind of flips the script. It's a sad read. You know what's going to happen, right? You're gonna get decimated. But it's really interesting to get this perspective from the victim, per se, right? Broken Spears. All right, so Tenochtitlan, the center of the Aztec world, right? It was founded in 1325. And this is after the Common Era. So in 1325 is the capital of the Mexicas, of the Aztecs. Um, what's fucking crazy about this city, right? Talking about technology here, is that it was founded on top of a fucking lake, excuse me, Lake Texcoco, right? And that's where Mexico City sits on top now. So that's why Mexico City is really prone to earthquakes, because underneath the soil there's a fucking lake. Right, so Lake Texcoco. And so what happened here is that these motherfuckers, I was about to say, I said it anyways. These motherfuckers, these Aztecs, they come from over here, from Southwest U.S., what is present day Southwest U.S., like from New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, that area here, right? They come from over here and they come south during the 1300s, and they migrate because there is a drought out there and there's wars, right? Some people believe they come from like Mesa Verde, all these cliff dwellers from the pueblos, whatever, right? What we call Aslan, or they call Aslan, the land of Aslan, which is the present day Southwest U.S. So these people migrate from there. They're forced to migrate from there because of droughts and warfare. And they have this notion that their homeland, or they're going to settle now, has to be a place where the god is. The god is going to appear to them. And the god is Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl. I'm not going to, it's a long name. But Quetzalcoatl, I don't know if I could, let me see, share content. This is kind of important. There we go. Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl, right, is a serpent, a feathered serpent. Serpent that has feathers, right? The feathered serpent, right? So the story goes like this: that they're going to stop wherever they see their god Quetzalcoatl, right? And he's the main god among other many gods, right? There's Tlaloc, which is the god of lightning and stuff. Right? Anyways, and they're going down from the Southwest U.S. from here, from El Paso, basically. um, from El Paso, Texas, right? They leave El Chuco and they migrate down and they end up in this fucking lake, Lake Texcoco, which is present day Mexico City. In the middle of the lake, there's a branch sticking out. It's like a tree, right? One of the branches is sticking out, and lo and fucking behold, there is this right here. This image, which is, if you don't know the seal of Mexico flag, it's an eagle holding a serpent, holding a snake, and is about to eat it at top of a fucking branch. And they saw this, and they were like, holy shit, this is Quetzalcoatl. This is the feathered serpent. It's a serpent, it's a snake, it has feathers. But in reality, it was just a fucking eagle eating a snake. This happens all the time. But anyways, it's their mythology. It's their religion. It's their beliefs. So they're like, fuck. We gotta fucking build here a city on top of the fucking lake. And they did it. They fucking did it. And the way they did it is with these things called chinampas, artificial islands, right? So anybody engineer out there, right? If you're an engineer, you must be amazed by these people with fucking primitive fucking tools. No steel, no iron, no fucking right wheels. Even they created artificial islands massively. That by the point, so it was founded in 1325. That's when that happened. They saw this fucking bird and snake duking it out, Quetzalcoatl. From 1325 all the way to 1520, they started building an artificial city on top of this lake, right? Artificial islands. And there was about at least between 400,000 to 500,000 people living in this artificial island by 1520. And it was beautiful. Fucking walls were lined up with gold. Right? You walk down the street in an alley, and there was gold on the fucking walls. Right? There was gold everywhere. Right? And there was jade, and there was precious metals and stuff. Right? These people invested heavily in the city. Granted that yes, it was an empire. Right? Most of this gold and jades and emeralds and precious stones and stuff were taken by force by the neighboring Indians, right? Like the Toltecas and the other people that would later ally themselves with the conquistadors to beat them. But it was still a magnificent city. As a matter of fact, there's records of the conquistadors when they first landed, when they first reached Tenochtitlan, because it's in the inland. They first landed in Veracruz, and then they heard about stories about this rich ass empire deeper in the jungle, so they moved in there. And when they first got there, they first got to like the gates into this lake, the city on top of a fucking lake. We're like, holy shit, it's like Venice. That was the first thing they thought about, Venice. And when they went in there, they're like, holy shit, it's better than fucking Venice. And Venice at this time was the best city, the Venetians, because they had the money. They were the ones that were the bankers, bankrolling the conquistadors. And the age of exploration were the Venetians. Right? And Venice was a really rich fucking city back then. But it didn't compare to Tenochtitlan. Tenochtitlan was even magnificent, even more beautiful. Motherfucking walls lined up with gold. The fuck you have a city with gold just in the fucking walls for the public just stroll by? Yeah, that's what they found. And if you know your history, right? Cortez gets there, right? Gets his ass beat, comes back, right? Gets a bunch of allies from the neighboring tribes that were being tribute to the Aztecs. That were enemies of the Aztecs. So Cortez, right, first goes in there, tries to conquer, gets his ass whooped, goes back, retreats, thinks about it. It's like, holy shit, right? Hooks up with this girl, native girl, La Malinche, right? She knows Spanish, or no, she knows Mayan, and some Spain knows Mayan somehow, right? So there's like a link there of translators. So they're able to get all these allies that hate the Aztecs, and they come back and they conquer, right, and destroy, right, Moctezuma and Cuauhtemoc and Aztec Empire. And this happened in 1520. But before, even the conquistadors, when they were destroying the city, they wrote it in their diaries. They lamented it. That they were like, I mean, I understand these are orders, but holy shit, we're destroying one of the most beautiful cities we've ever seen. And these are explorers, conquistadors. They've been around in the Crusades before, and now they're over here in Mexico. That's where they get the word conquistadors, reconquista. Right? They reconquered Spain first from the Muslims, from the Moors, and then they were like, "What the fuck do we do? Right? We're warriors. All we know is how to fight." And then Columbus lands in fucking Hispaniola. There's a whole world over here to conquer. Hey, hooray! Let's make money over here. And they made fucking money, mad fucking bank. right, from all the gold and silver that Spain stole from these indigenous populations here. Spain became the biggest and baddest empire in the world because of indigenous gold and silver. Not just in the Aztec Empire, but also the Incas in South America. All right, anyways, let's go back to Aztec philosophy now. It's not a history class. So, okay, so that's Tenochtitlan. Fucking cool. So let's talk about the philosophy of these Aztecs. Okay, so let's talk about, I'm just going to give you some vocabulary words. I'm not make it too long now. It's a long ass lecture now. So first you have the wise man, right? Or the wise person, actually. What's really beautiful about this word is called tlamatini, is that it's gender neutral. It's not about, it doesn't have a specific gender. So that implies that anybody could be a let me give you the tlamatini, a wise person. These are like the Brahmins, the priests, the tlamatini. El tlamatini del barrio, right? That's who I am, right? I'm the philosopher del barrio, right? I'm the wise person that give you some knowledge, right? The tlamatini. Right. Another important word that I need to give you here is oyin. Just like Hinduism, Buddhism has karma, right? The pre-Socratic Heraclitus has logos, right? Daoism has Tao, right? Confucius has Theon, the will of heaven. The Aztecs have oyin, and oyin is just the movement, the change of the earth, right? And it's in cycles, right? There's this cycle of movement and change. And that's this force of change. And that's oyin. It's a beautiful word. And then another word that we have, Nepantla. Nepantla. Nepantla is that force, that binding force that binds together the creative and the destructive pairs of everything around us. Right? So this is the dialectic of the Aztecs. So the Aztecs were dialectical thinkers way before fucking Hegel, who formalized dialectics for us in the Western world. Right? Nepantla, knowing that the universe is made up of these opposite forces. Right? This middling, that's really what it means. The middling of these opposite forces. Right? Think about yin yang, right? Right? This is embodied in the term ometeod. So ome means both you and me, and then teod means God. So ometeod is like namaste. You are a God, I am a God. I recognize the God in you because I am a God as well. You recognize the God in me. Ometeod. This dialectic of opposite forces. The plantla, the binding together of creative and destructive pairs. Another important concept, malinali, or malinayi, the transmission of energy between layers of the cosmos. Right, so these people believe that there was different layers in the cosmos. There was the earth, right? There was the underground, right? The underworld, and there was like a heaven, like a paradise, the upper world, the world of the heavens. And Malinayi was like this the energy to make us go between these worlds. So have you ever been to Yucatan and been to cenotes, which is like these underground like pools and underground water like caves, right? Caves full of water, right? These were one of those sites for this Malinali, this transmission of energy between the underworld and the world above us here. Or in the pyramids, there was another site for the transmission, the Malinali, between the world of right now, of us, and then the world of the stars, right, the heavens, right? And then Teod, I just said Teod. Teod means the power, the energy, the God, the energy, the force, the power of everything. At the bottom of everything, there is Teod. Okay? So when I say Ometeod, I mean, I recognize that power, that force that makes everything in the world in you, and you recognize that power, that force that makes everything in the world in me. Ometeo. All right. So that's the main. Um, and Theod is just spelled Teotl. Theod. This is the main concept I want you to know about Aztec thought, right? But I just want you to know, like, realize that there's a lot of like echoes, right, with pre-Socratics and these Eastern philosophies. Even though there was a whole fucking ocean between them, these people were coming up with somewhat similar ideas, right? Even their structures, right? Pyramids, right? And there's been some wacky theories about aliens out there. I don't believe in that shit. I really don't. But there's that, right? I mean, there's gonna be something that really like pushed these people, right? What was that logos? What is that theod? Right? What is that thou? What is that karma that is at the force of everything, that's controlling everything? What is that? Why these all these people from all over the world, basically, right now, from India to China to Japan, right, all the way to Mexico, coming up with the same kind of like conclusion about the reality of the world, the metaphysical world. Something there, though, right? There's something to ponder there, right? I don't think it's fucking aliens, but there's something there, right? I think it's just, for me, I think it just reinforces the idea that we are one. Yeah, my body, my skin color might be different as yours, my culture might be different as yours, but at the end of the day, we are fucking one, right? Okay, that's the end of this lecture. Ometeo.